linchpin for many of our organizations, and we felt that with the change that had unfortunately become us, that it was time for IT to get back to being IT. That being said, we took a look at our current project portfolio, we took a look at what our strategic plan was, and we did some realignment. Coming together, we developed something that we call the Compass projects. These are the things that we felt were going to move us forward and move the county forward in the years to come. A lot of things were put on hold in a temporary, things that were administrative initiatives while the transition was occurring and preparing for the new administration, and things that between the Department of OIT and the other departments felt that it was time to do a reset on certain projects, and I will go over those. When it comes to the Compass projects, some things that we were pushed upon were accelerated due to the new administration. Some were accelerated due to mandates. Some were accelerated due to the underperformance of current vendors. All of these were basically unplanned, unfunded needs upon the county. OIT has always been the go-to when there's a problem to be solved. A lot of the initiatives that you'll talk about through all these budget hearings, you'll see the IT staff joining and listening in. 90+% of probably the budget hearing conversations will have a technology line, and those that don't typically turn to some need in technology. We want to make sure that we are always ready at the helm and that we are moving the county in the right direction. That being said, I'd like to respectfully disagree with the cuts and address each of those individually. The first one was a reduction in the 311 operations. It was the auditor's request to have a 6-month delay in the 311 implementation. We were scheduled to go live just after the beginning of July. We've been ready for 311 for over 18 months. This is not a net new initiative. This was something that was brought up and worked on under the Cabinet's administration, and it was only delayed due to his untimely death and the transition into the new administration. We hired the 311 program manager well over 18 months ago. The 311 center has been built out. The technology has been developed and refined for the last 18 months, including virtual call centers, working with the departments that would be affected on a back-end CRM or customer relations management system, improving processes and workflows on addressing non-emergency calls, and we are ready to open up 311 as soon as we can acquire staff in the FY20 budget. The second item is the turnover. History is history. There's a couple of lines that I kind of frown upon in the county, and it's we've always done it this way. And another one when it comes to budget is that use it or lose it. I don't believe in that. I'm highly against that. But when it comes to our personnel and turnover, things have changed in the last 12 months, and the picture looks completely different than it did before. The way that OIT now markets, acquires, and hires talent, and the level of talent that we are looking for has grown tremendously. The constituents are expecting top-level service from Baltimore County, and in order for us to provide top-level service, we need to be hiring top-level skills in the IT department. We are competing with a very competitive private market. The IT market has been booming again for the last few years. In order to compete, we have to address this with converting positions from the old merit positions to part-time. Our current candidates aren't looking for the 35-year pension. They're not looking for the typical benefits that came with getting a government job. In IT, sadly, most of it is salary-based. A lot of it is the technology that we're doing. We sell with being modern in our technology. We are able to sell to these candidates in the vast areas that we work on and the real-world problems that we solve. But we need to be competitive. We changed the way that we market jobs. We changed our job descriptions and our job postings. There was a template, basically, that job postings were built on. And sadly to say, the way that they read, it's almost like serving a sentence to come work for Baltimore County. It's not. It's a privilege to work for this county. The things that this county accomplishes and does, and especially on the technology side, I would put it up against any of the private sector jobs out there. The request to reduce our turnover rate, by $37,000, in my mind, goes against the progress that we've made. In 2018, we hired 12 new candidates. In 2019, we've hired 24 new candidates. We have 16 vacant positions, 8 of which either have job offers or are waiting with start dates, and 2 of them are consultants with the right to hire, which is another new approach that OIT has taken to be able to evaluate talent and work at the highest level of talent acquisition. Item number 3, data software processing rental under 0424. This is the CPAS, which is the pension system. The maintenance is paid for through the Office of Information Technology. Over a decade ago, the administration requested and ordered for IT to be consolidated under one unit. With that was not only IT personnel, but it was systems, contracts, and maintenance agreements. The maintenance agreement that was referenced for 911, that is funded under a special fund, which comes from 911 dollars that are on phone bills. The state keeps 25 cents of that, 75 cents goes back to the county into a special fund and pays for those softwares. The CPAS is like many other systems that we've centralized under OIT. It's not just for the fiscal part of it. We manage the contract. We make sure that the contracts are being renewed. We make sure that when it's time for the contract to be renewed, that IT is the precipice of that contract, making sure that there is data security, data privacy. If the contract was to terminate, that the county was protected, and making sure that systems could maintain up and running to continue services for the agencies and the constituents. I think it is best that the CPAS maintenance stays under the Office of Information Technology, just like many, or if not all, of the remaining software maintenance agreements. Reduction in the data processing software rental by $16,926. There are 80-plus applications that are managed through this budget line. 6902-0424 is the line. $17,000 comes down to about $200 per application. We have to make estimates on what the increase will be nearly 15 months ahead of time as we budget for each one of these maintenance renewals. Each one of these contracts has different escalations that can be up to a certain amount. We do our best at trying to manage the expectation of what that increase will be each and every year. And I feel that just reducing this by $17,000 could go against the potential increase, and I prefer to not eliminate that fund, but have it available in case there was an unforeseen increase higher than we anticipated in any number of the 1 out of 84 software packages. The largest reduction comes from the tech fund contingency package. I was prepared for this one, to be honest with you. We prepared for this one almost a year ago when we started. As the initiatives were put on hold and things changed, we knew that there was a fair amount of money in the tech fund for projects that were slated for the upcoming year. We realigned and made sure that the funding was accurate for each one of these projects, and we realized that there was a contingency remaining. As we moved into the FY20, things changed drastically for OIT. We had to make a decision on stopping an upgrade for the county's tax system. That decision was made by the OBF director and OIT. Terminating that upgrade and moving to an RFP to replace the entire tax system increases the cost greatly. However, it is something that the county needs to move forward. The current tax system does not meet the needs of a county this size. That being said, we were able to reallocate some of the contingency funds for that towards the tax system. The second one was the police RMS system. The police RMS system needed to be upgraded to meet NIBRS compliancy. It's the National Bureau for Incident Reporting. It's a new federal standard that must be met by the end of calendar year 2020. Again, it is currently under what is called the Uniform Crime Reporting, which is a state-led and federal. It's a change in how the police department needs to report. The current record management system that the police department uses, the vendor said that they would be NIBRS compliant. They said they could meet that. The police department went and acquired a $970,000 grant to handle that upgrade. As county IT, police, the current vendor, and the federal and the feds, met and discussed, it soon came to the realization that the current vendor is not going to be able to meet the NIBRS compliance, and it was time for the county to move on and into a new direction and also replace the record management system for the police department. This $970,000 upgrade turned into a $2.6 million replacement of the county's record management system. Again, unplanned, but these contingency funds are what makes it capable for IT to meet these unfunded mandates and changes that occur to us each and every year as we budget more than a year ahead of time. In the FY19 request, we were able to roll $1.8 million that was remaining from FY18 into FY19. The projects that were slated for FY19 and Tech Fund totaled $8.1 million with the new tax system. That being said, we have worked with the Office of Budget and Finance, and we understand that the contingency fund is a contingency fund. It is there if it is needed. It is not a use it or lose it fund. If the fund is drained completely because it was needed for the year, then I respectfully request for it to be replenished each year forthcoming. If we do not drain that fund because of contingency needs, then the fund will carry over into the baseline that is continually set each and every year for that contingency fund. We are rolling over, I believe, and I look to my phone of friends here from OIT, nearly $800,000 into next year's contingency fund. So it is not a full contingency fund request. And we will continue to do so moving forward. But to eliminate the contingency fund altogether could jeopardize the ability for OIT to meet the needs of our agencies and our constituents when these mandates and changes occur. In the past year, to have that contingency fund unavailable for us in a difficult budget year, you can imagine the conversations that would have had to be held, for coming around our tax system and the record management system issues. I believe that is all for the cuts. And I am open for questions.
Councilman Marks?
Thank you. So in a lean year, we are pushing two major initiatives, right? The 311 Center and the Open Data Initiative. Why should we be doing two large-scale initiatives like that in a lean year? Why are both important?
I think 311 is important. A county of our size with 840,000 constituents, I think the expectation is there from our constituents that we have a non-emergency 311 number. Just to set the table, in 2017, when we started this conversation, if you dialed 311, it just gave you a busy signal. 311 as a number did not even exist in Baltimore County. I worked with all the major carriers and the cell phone carriers to turn on 311 and to basically take it to a voicemail, just so we could capture data to see how many of our constituents, although we don't advertise, market, or even say that we have a 311 system, how many people are calling 311 expecting that service from Baltimore County. Over 7,000 people a month call 311 currently. That is an unmarketed number. So as we go live with this, we expect it to grow greatly. The numbers and the budget that we have planned for FY20, I feel that the 311 will probably grow, to be honest with you, sir, in FY21 as the constituent base sees that 311 is a service that meets their needs for requests and incidents.
That's interesting. So the telephone company actually tells us how many people erroneously dial 311?
Actually, we have it with our back-end system. The virtual call center that we put in place preparing for 311, we're able to capture all this information. And what we've done with that is we set up a call tree so that we ask them to press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 based upon the number of tickets and incidents that we manually generate or we generate through our web console for whether it's code enforcement, potholes, and we're able to see what agencies are going to realize what type of impact when we roll out 311. So the data has been very critical for us.
Councilman Jones?
Yes, one of the, first of all, let me just acknowledge you and your leadership and what you guys have been doing in OIT have been terrific. Under your leadership, I've noticed some serious improvements, at least in the attitude and I guess the energy to which you've come to your position and which you put forth in making things better. So I appreciate that. One of the things I know a little bit about is probably our current emergency communication center, the 911 center. So I was sort of taken back to see that 311, the director would make more than the director of the 911. And don't get me wrong, I've lived in the county for over 35 years, and I have to tell you, I was shocked when you said that you get 7,000 calls a month from 311, because I have never had one of my constituents in one of the town hall meetings I had say, why don't we have a 311 system? And maybe I'm just being ignorant, but when I think about smartphones, when I think about apps, when I think about all these things, I'm just thinking to myself, it seems like 311. I understand the back end in terms of keeping data, but in my mind, I'm just thinking a 311 system is sort of like yesterday's technology, isn't it? Like when I lived in the city all my life, I can tell you now, the number was always 396-3100. That was the number to the Baltimore City operator. That was before 311, and it's still in my mind today. So, you know, explain to me the salary, and then explain to me why a 311 will somehow turn the tide to a smartphone.
Sure. So the salary, the job was posted prior to my taking leadership, but the job was posted, and the search was at least statewide for a 311 director. In fact, communication was put out to the current Baltimore City 311 director, Ms. Allen, to see if she would actually be interested in the position here in Baltimore County. Her salary requirements were 30 to 40% higher than the current 311 director's request. Our current program manager or director for 311 comes with decades of call center experience. The number of candidates that applied, the salary ranges that they were requesting were actually higher than what Mr. Costantini was offered. I cannot answer for the 911 director. That is not under my budget. That is not my decision. The salary that the 311 director is offered and is paid does fall into the same range and the scale of the 911 director. Do you want me to answer the second question, or was there a follow-up? I'm sorry. I didn't.
Well, the second question,
Yeah.
and then I'll go back to the salary issue. The second question is, okay, two-part. How many people are dialing 911 for non-emergency numbers, for non-emergency services?
I think that's the 222 line. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but it's far less than 311.
Okay,
Yes, it's far less than 311.
all right. So,
They only have, I think, 1 to 2 people that man that phone.
right. I guess my second part would be, do you know how many people are dialing 911 for non-emergencies?
I do not. I don't have those numbers in front of me, and that get turned over, but I also think that that number is fairly low. I think that the mindset of our constituents, sadly, is that we don't have a non-emergency. I mean, I think if you went around and asked a constituent, you know, what was 2222, I don't think that 99% of the people would know what that is. We've had the online portal where we've taken requests for well over a year now, and we've marketed that, and we have the bulk code go out, and neither of them even come close to the number of people that are still dialing 311. I think with our constituent base, and especially the demographics of Baltimore County, I think that a lot of people still like to pick up the phone and make a request. And that the 311 calls and those numbers don't even come close to the number of people that are still calling DPW directly over potholes, code enforcement over tall grass, barking dogs. You know, people, a lot of our constituents still pick up the phone and expect a voice on the other end to handle their situation.
So, before I get back to the salary issue, do we know how many people in Baltimore County, you gave me the 7,000 number, and of 830,000 people, that, you know, that's probably not a big number. But let me just ask you, so we can assume that all the rest of the citizens have figured it out? They know the number to code enforcement. They know the number to call when they call a snow number when somebody needs to plow their road. They call Department of Solid Waste when nobody picks up their trash. I guess my question is, the rest, if we say that 7,000 are dialing 311,
Yes.
right now we can say that 7,000 expect 311 and they either don't know or haven't figured out that there's another numbers they should call. Then the reverse is the rest of the citizens The rest of the 800,000 have figured it out. They know who to call because they're not calling 311, and yet they are still able to get the services that they request.
Correct. So obviously, it's not 800,000 that are calling.
Right.
The other initiative wasn't just to have a 311. It was to take these calls that are coming into these agencies, and a lot of these calls are being handled by members of agencies that do other functions within the agencies, and it's distracting from their day-to-day jobs. To be able to centralize these into a 311 center where a lot of the questions that come in to these agencies can be answered with FAQs. I mean, they are, what happens when my trash pickup? They're more questions than they are incidents or tickets that come in. And to be able to pull that volume out of an agency and let the agencies focus on the job at hand was one of the main initiatives of the prior administration. We have higher paid individuals that are answering phones in each one of these agencies, and the mindset is that a call center could probably do first call resolution on a large percentage like we do in our network operations center, where 80% of our calls that come in to 8200, we have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 NOC representatives, not systems engineers, not programmers, not higher paid skill set people answering these questions and getting A, our users back online quickly, and B, not inundating higher paid skill set individuals with things that could be handled first call resolution. The same mindset as that for 311. A large volume of calls that come in can be handled with one phone call.
Okay. So on the salary requirements, I was a little confused. You said the person from Baltimore City required more money than we were offering? More than the 118 or more than some other number?
More than the 118.
Okay. So I guess the next question is...
Our current salary is higher than that.
Okay. I won't go there. I already say that I won't go there.
We can turn it to another.
No. So what about the salary? I'll ask this to the administration. What about, or the budget officer, what is the salary of the current emergency communications director?
I'm afraid I don't have that in front of me, but Liz, you have
Somebody's
it there?
got it. I know our auditors have it.
Lauren's pulling out her book, 117.
Are you kidding me? What's going on here? How many employees are over in the 911 center?
Council, do you want to turn your mic?
It's on.
Okay.
Let me know when it's my turn.
Are you,
No,
Councilman
done.
Jones? Councilwoman Bevins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for being here today and taking our questions. So I do have a few questions about this 311 operations. First, I've been elected office 9 years, and before that, I worked 7.5 years in constituent services for the entire east side of Baltimore County in the Smith administration. And I have never, ever, ever had anyone ask about a 911, 311. Never. I just called it, and it said, if you have an emergency, call 911 or go to our Baltimore County app. That's what it says right now.
And then it continues through a call tree.
Well, I didn't want to disrupt the meeting, but I
Understood.
just wanted to see what was said on there. So first, I just asked Councilman Marks, I just asked Councilman Crandall, I'll ask for the whole council. Has anybody ever had a constituency say, we need a 311 number? You have? You've been in office less than all of us, and somebody's already brought that up.
I called 311.
You,
I called 311.
I wouldn't advertise that, Izzy,
nothing
because we don't have a 311.
Well, I was door knocking as a candidate, and there was water percolating through the cracks of the road because there was a pipe that had burst. And so I called 311. Nothing happened. So I dialed 911, and the police came out
Okay.
to check it out to see that a pipe had burst. And I will say that I did wonder if that's the highest use for public safety for a police officer to check a water leak. I thought there's...
Well, that's not who does. I mean, yeah, 911 would
Well,
do that.
they
Yeah.
did deploy a police officer to check the water leak. So I did call 311.
Okay, so back to the, so the position itself, so let's just say I'm a constituent and this 311 is in full force. And I call 311. Are they actually handling the constituent issue? Or are they just, so if I say there's a water main break, are they just giving me the number to Baltimore City? Or if I say there's a car broke down in the middle of the road and it's impeding traffic, are they just giving you the number to the closest precinct? Or are they actually implementing the call to whichever precinct is closer and get a police officer out there?
They are. So an incident, for example, pothole, water main break, they would enter the information and the ticket would start its workflow. So the process would begin within the agency, and their supervisors use the same customer relations management system, and they see the new ticket created and can be assigned to a highway shop or whatever. So this is about efficiency as well, making sure that the constituent's request is tracked from the very beginning. The constituent gets a tracking record number for that call. They can go online and follow the process and the progress of that ticket or that incident from its inception to its assignment to its closure. And for something like a car that's blocking, that would be forwarded over to 911 non-emergency or 222 non-emergency for the police to handle. But they're not 411. They're not information only. You know, they're not just giving out numbers. Their job is to create that incident record and get it moving through the agencies.
So what happens if it's a health department issue and it's 4 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning? Who are you giving that ticket to? Because there's nobody in the health department at that time. Where does it go?
311's not open at 4 in the morning currently.
So the 311's not going to be a 24-hour?
No, ma'am. It is only slated for, I don't even think Baltimore City is, I'm not quite sure. Are they 24
Is it
hours?
just business hours?
Yeah, right now it's business hours. That's the original operating model to open with, is business hours.
Okay, and I guess my next, I guess it's a concern that if we have 205 positions in the 911 center, we know it's a very stressed center. We know that for sure. We've heard that for years. Big turnover, high vacancies, and you're paying that person $117,000. Why, in God's name, would you be paying somebody $118,000 with 6 people under them?
Yeah. So
and it's not a 24-hour weekend holiday job.
Yes, ma'am. So the interview process, which, again, I was not part of the selection, but the interview process, that was the salary range that was expected from all the top candidates that applied. I cannot answer for the 9...
So we let other jurisdictions set our salaries in Baltimore County now?
No, it's not based on other jurisdictions. A lot of these came from private industry and call centers. There was very few that came from other jurisdictions applying.
Well, it
that
sounds
even
like
had qualifications.
It sounds like a constituent services representative, which we all have in our office. This is exactly what people do all day, every day in our offices. I actually have a tracking system that I created through OIT over 9 years ago. I may be the only person that uses it, and it does everything except... Well, it does everything. We track it all the way through. We open it, we close it, has a tracking number. I can tell you that as of today, I've handled 6,831 issues that are closed. So I know what that tracking system's about. So I just don't understand why we each have people in our office. County executive has constituent services people. Why would we even need this 311 when we have an app on our phone? Community associations have all this information. I just don't understand, like, how you are... Pardon me? Yeah, well, I'll get to that. But I don't understand how you even predict how many calls are going to come in to this 311 to even know you need a director, supervisor, and, 8 representatives.
Yeah. So we are starting with temporary positions until we can determine what the call volume will be. Again, we can only go off of who is currently calling 311 in an unmarketed, unsolicited industry. I mean, right now, Baltimore County has put nothing forward saying that we have 311, and we still get 7,000 calls. And consistently for the last 18 months since we've had this posted, we go between upper 6,000, sometimes near 8,000, depending on the time of the season, numbers of calls. And we've had as you say, the recording on there for a year, and still we get 7,000 calls every month coming in. So it hasn't even degraded or declined, although we pushed out a mobile app. We've promoted the online web console, and we continue to have the voicemail stating, please go online or use our mobile app or push these numbers. The same number of people continue to call.
Do you think that this program is premature, knowing that we have probably one of the slimmest budgets ever, and we have this $82 million deficit to put all this in place before we even decide what we're cutting, which could be this program?
I think that 311 is a service. Unfortunately, there are costs that need to occur to be able to provide top-level service to our constituents and the expectations of our constituents. From the inception of what 311 was to be 24 months ago under the prior administration, this is a lean model of that. There was 18 representatives that was slated or needed under the projections of the prior administration. We took data for the past year. That's where these numbers are based off of. How long does it take for a representative to handle a call, to process a ticket, and put it through? And with the number of calls that come in, what is the least number of representatives that we can have to make sure that our constituents don't call 311 and sit on hold for 10 minutes? Because that's also not the perception that we want to give the county.
I agree.
So this is honestly, it is a much leaner model than was originally proposed. And it will, over 6 months, as we start marketing, we will see whether the numbers grow, stay steady, or decrease, and then we'll adjust accordingly.
Well, I just want to be frank with you. I can't speak with my colleagues, but I can tell you in 2 years until Ms. Rogers came on board, no one ever had a discussion with me about a 311 center. The previous administration never had that conversation with me. I don't know if he had it with anyone else. Getting all nose up here. So this is all a big surprise to us. I know Ms. Rogers talked about it a little bit during her introductions and right when she was confirmed about the conception of this, but knowing that you've already, looked for people in this position, did not even know if this is going to make it through the budget, I think is very, very premature. And just to know that this person would be making almost as much as the 911 person who, how long has she been in place in the 911 center?
I don't know
She's
when
still
she was
making
appointed.
only 1,000 more than this person. I mean, I got a problem with it. I don't know if anybody else does, but I do. Thank you.
Councilman Crandall?
Thank you, Chairman Quirk. So I'm just going to echo my colleague to my left. I'm just wondering, in a tight budget, if this is a luxury or an actual need. Just to be honest with you and your department, who has done great work in the past. And I will also echo Councilwoman Bevins in that this is a significant budget request of $500,000, and that $500,000 will probably have to grow in the future if the investment does pay off and the program is successful. So, $500,000 this year turns into $750,000 next year. It turns into $1 million the following year, conceivably. And I'm just sort of I'm not quite sure what the word is. I don't know if it's taken aback, as Councilman Jones said, but that significant investments have been made into the 311 center that the council didn't know about, and then a $500,000 budget request comes to the council for advancements in a program that's already started. So I think as Kathy said, I can't speak for my colleagues, but it kind of puts us off a little bit that here we are facing a deficit. Here we are with the toughest budget in the 5 years that I've served, and it seems like there might be some luxury items in your department, Rob, which it doesn't make for a comfortable conversation, but one that we need to have.
So, thank you, sir. I guess I would say the foundations that have built up for the 311 Center when it comes to technology were all technology initiatives that, whether 311 Center existed or didn't exist, was something that our department was moving forward with anyway. We're able to leverage these technologies if we open up a 311 Center. The virtual call center replaced 18 individual call centers that were spread across all the agencies, allowing for flexibility within those individual call centers. We're able to assign call takers literally within minutes and hours instead of the old configuration that took days. The old call centers, the way that they were designed and the technology that was used during a snowstorm, agents would have to still report here to Baltimore County to take those calls, which was a safety issue for the employees of the county. With the new virtual call center, these call takers are able to work remotely from anywhere. So that technology is something that we were moving forward to anyways to create better, effective response and more efficient response for requests that are coming in. The back-end system, the customer relations management system, is something that came along and we built out with the Bulkco Go app. It is all part of the same software package. When it came time to pick a package for what our mobile app would be and the CRM solution, a lot of our neighboring jurisdictions are using Salesforce, which is $1 million lift. The county decided not to move forward with that because we weren't sure where it would go and what the take upon the constituents would be, their commitment to utilizing it, and the county's ability to leverage a CRM system. What that CRM system has been able to generate for us as a county over the last 2 years is accountability through our agencies. So as incidents now come in through the mobile app or online and they're put into our CRM system, there is a tracking mechanism already in place for these constituents so that they know that their phone call and their request did not drop into a black hole, that they can follow it through the process, and that each agency is being held accountable for whether it's a pothole, whether it is a code enforcement issue. So we were implementing these technologies years ago to solve those problems. 311 is just able to leverage them. So if you take a look at those investments, they weren't because of 311. 311 is just able to leverage those moving forward.
Councilman Koch.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the 222 number, do you intend to eliminate that, to send them to 311?
Those are discussions to be had with the 911 center. I think it is a very small manned staff, and they do handle things off hours still, non-emergency calls, such as an abandoned vehicle or broken down vehicle that police have to respond to. It's not a public works response, and they will still be required 24 hours.
Now with the CAD system, I see it'll be online, I believe it's the second quarter of fiscal 2023. Will you be asking, do we need additional funds to complete that project? There's $12 million here.
Yeah, we feel like we'll be well within budget for that. That was being funded under the referendum.
Okay, so now my question is, will there be any more money in the budget to fund the CAD system improvement?
We feel like it will come in well within budget under $12 million.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We've already been working on the solution and been looking at rough order of magnitude for what the cost would be to replace it, and we felt like we are in solid footing for budgeting.
So why the second quarter of 2023 before it's complete if the budget appropriation will run out in July of 2019? So will it be finished in July of 2019?
No, I think the
not up until
yeah, the money was available then. Go ahead, Ed.
Also, it's gotcha.
Yes, and it takes. There's a lot of requirements, and it's a large lift to replace a CAD system. And there's other things that needed to take place. We have the radio upgrade was part of that same referendum. The P25 radio upgrade single cell is happening now. The record management system for police and CAD.
I know it's becoming a problem more and more of our current CAD system. So
our current CAD system works well. It's not poised for where we need to be for the future.
Well, if you say so. Although, I mean, I've been in the...
It's in need of replacement.
It need replacement. Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And this is good that you're doing this. And so you're in discussions about 222 going to 311.
In discussions of what calls would be handled by 311 and not 2222.
Okay. And, okay, thank you very much.
Councilman Patoka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. O'Connor. One comment and one question. The comment is on a 311 system. In other jurisdictions, it works well when it's working in tandem with a stat system, and so that you can look not only at one councilmanic district, but you can look jurisdiction-wide at how well we're doing. For example, I would use waste removal where we, in this county, inexplicably have no bid contracts that don't come before the council. So how do we know how well we're doing? And if a waste removal company is not doing its job, and somebody might call 311 in one part of the county, and the same company has waste removal responsibilities in another part of the county, in another councilmanic district, then that can be tracked, it can be monitored, it can be made more efficient through a stat process. And that's just one example. And I think when my experience, from what I've read, what I've seen, where I've worked, is that these two operations need to be done in tandem and also in conjunction with the council and with the executive branch. So there is, I think, strong functionality in making the things we do as a county more efficient, stronger, and down the road less expensive. So it's kind of thinking more long-term, just in my opinion. I'll just share those thoughts. The question is in terms of, I wasn't clear about the tech fund and the contingency fund, and the reason is I saw that there's capital funds allocated, which typically have a 20-year life, and I didn't understand in the world of technology why things would be funded through the capital side when typically technology doesn't really have a 20-year life, unless I'm wrong.
Yeah.
They're PAYGO, but they're allocated on the capital side? Right.
These are PAYGO funds that are being spent into, we set it up as a capital budget program, but it's not funded with any bond funds. It's just to allow.
Well, I understand, but shouldn't capital PAYGO still be allocated for projects that are anticipated to have a 20-year life? Because otherwise it would just be an operating budget. Because it should be then spent within that, it should be spent within that fiscal year.
The idea behind it when it was set up was actually by, I think, recommendation of our office many years ago.
Okay.
Just the idea that to have a non-lapsing fund, so that they could get projects started that might not get completed in 1 year, but it could still be like a one-time project that could do great things.
I
It
see.
wasn't intended as an operating type fund where you're paying consultants on an ongoing basis.
Do we get evaluated by the bond raters then on how much PAYGO we allocate to the capital budget? Or only on the bond funds?
The ratings, they're looking at bond stream, but they're also looking at how much PAYGO we put into the capital program, because the amount of PAYGO limits how much you have to actually borrow.
Right, so the balance of it.
Rating agencies have complimented the county on as far as putting PAYGO within capital. We have put PAYGO in the capital budget, we haven't seen.
Well, I understand that. I didn't know if we had a limit of PAYGO that we allocate to the capital side. So I guess it would range with project and also with the availability of PAYGO for that fiscal year. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Councilman Jones.
Yes, I'm going to be brief, knowing the hour. I just wanted to ask, in the short time that I've got involved in this, I did what most people do who's technologically savvy. You Google it.
Mm-hmm.
You just Google the question and see what comes up. So my first question is have you or any of your staff read from the, I guess it's a magazine or a blog that says Governing States and Localities, is the cost of 311 systems worth the price of knowing? Has anybody read that?
I have not read that article.
So one of the things that I thought was interesting, I would urge you to read it. A couple of facts that jumped out at me, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing because for the most part is relatively supportive of 311s. But one of the things it said was Number one, the big question is, what will be the cost of a phone call? And according to this, the average cost of a phone call on the 311 system is $3.40, and some cities pay as much as $4 or $5 a call. And then it goes on to say that when the recession slowed down growth, certain cities such as New Orleans and Detroit pulled the plug on their 311 systems. And then it goes on to say that Minneapolis has experienced 25% increase in the number of people using smartphones to connect with the city's website. According to the 311 director, Don Stickle, the growing popularity of the city's mobile app has led to a decrease in 311 phone calls. So that speaks to what I was saying. Are we moving in the past, or are we moving forward?
Now, I think this goes back to, again, so you take a look at the percentage of constituents that will utilize the mobile app, the percentage of constituents that will utilize the web, and then the remaining percentage of constituents that will still pick up the phone expecting someone to answer and handle their call. A 40-man, 50-man, 100-man 311 center is probably not right-sized for Baltimore County. That's why we are starting with 8 call takers. That data of those 7,000 people, again, I hate to keep going back to that continue to call, although we have a mobile app. And we've taken tens of thousands of requests over the mobile app and on the web. We're still taking 85,000 calls a year from constituents who don't utilize the smartphone, who don't utilize the web. And I think it is the openness of this new administration and being able to say that we are a government that wants to connect with all of the people, to be able to provide each and every available medium for them to reach out to us, I think is our responsibility. And to say, to have no 311 whatsoever, and you have to utilize a smartphone or the web, isolates a large percentage of our constituents here in Baltimore County, especially the elderly. I think that we can right-size a 311 that makes sense for our county. I don't think we need a multi-million-dollar, 50, 100-man 311 center. I think that we could have a small operation that operates during the typical business hours to take some of the pressure off of our agencies and our skilled workers within those agencies, and to provide a cleaner, more efficient service to that percentage of or that demographic of our constituents.
Thank you.
Councilman Marks.
Thank you very much. The Open Data Initiative, I think this is something we've talked about a lot, and this is the system where a citizen can go online and see exactly when the road's going to be resurfaced, or exactly the performance of an agency within county government, correct? Mm-hmm. What is the timeline for that initiative? I mean, this time next year, where will we be with that?
The Office of Government Reform and Strategic Initiatives, sorry, Elizabeth, still getting used to the new GRI. It's easy just to say GRSI, is currently working and developing that plan as they determine the next step and the next need. It is IT's responsibility to fulfill that. I think it has been noted in here that we rolled out, or we are rolling out Socrata as the first phase of that. As this continues to develop, this administration is still new. They've only been in here less than 6 months. We are poised, and that's what these funds were set aside for. We knew that this government needed to be a little bit more transparent and open, and this current administration obviously ran on that platform. And the expectation of the constituents is that we will be open and more transparent. So I can't tell you a timeline of what's going to happen when, because I believe that is still being developed currently.
Other questions or comments from the council? All righty.
All right.
Appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Does anybody need a quick break before planning? No? All right. Why don't we?
1 minute.
Izzy needs 30 seconds. Yes. 30 seconds for Izzy. 30 seconds for Todd.